to the Naz Boys podcast. I'm your host, Mike, aka Mike Fob Fan 101, with my good friend and co-host Christian, aka Savage NASCAR.
What to do, NASBoys crew? First video of 2023, and we're coming here with a banger. We're going to be going through each NASCAR number and ranking the best driver for each car number. So I'm very excited for this.
That is right. So some of these are a little interesting. Some of them you may not expect because a lot of numbers are not as relevant as in recent years. So you will see a lot of older names that you may or may not heard. Me personally, when I was researching for this video, I was a little surprised with some of the people that did it, but it is factual information because of their stats. So I guess what we're going to do is we're going to get started with zero.
Yep. At number 0, there's not many drivers that drove the number 0 in NASCAR. Ward Burton is probably the most known one for that, and the double 0 obviously was David Rudiman and Buckshot Jones. But for number 0, the best driver I have for that is Daryl Derringer. Now, Daryl Derringer only raced mainly in the 16 car, but he also had some time in the 0. Daryl Derringer had 79 top 10s and 181 starts. He had 7 wins and 9 poles. Definitely a solid driver, but definitely I wouldn't put him in my top 50 drivers of all time.
Yeah. Looking through the stats here, one guy that I noticed is Dick Getty. He had 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s, and no laps led, but 1,497. Some other drivers that we could include as well are Mike Bliss. He drove the number 0 net 0 car. And then I see Delma Cowart, the original Clint Boyer, as some people like to call him.
Yeah.
So,
number 1, there's a couple that come to my head at the car number 1, but the 2, in my opinion, they're the best that drove the 1 car, Jamie McMurray and Steve Park. And for me, it was hard to decide this one because Steve Park obviously raced in a different era than Jamie McMurray, but Park only had 2 wins and 183 starts. Right. And only 35 top 10s, which isn't that great. And he missed qualifying 8 times in his career, while McMurray never missed a start. And McMurray had 584 starts with 7 wins and 169 top 10s. McMurray also led more laps, so I'm going to give the number 1 car to McMurray, but also some other drivers we have to think about too who drove the number 1 is Donnie Allison. And Donnie Allison mainly drove a different car number, so I'm not going to put Donnie Allison as in the 1 category.
You know, I think I got to agree with you with Jamie McMurray. When I was researching the stats yesterday, I was surprised that he actually had really solid stats because I became a fan around 2012, and Jamie McMurray was not the best driver in 2012 and onwards, but he did have 324 races, 4 wins, which a few of them were crown jewel races, 33 top 5s, 88 top 10s, and 993 laps led. So I think I got to give it to Jamie McMurray, but another person you could consider if we are including Busch Series drivers, Jeff Gordon. He did drive the iconic Baby Ruth number 1 car, so I guess that counts. We didn't really specify whether we could put Busch Series drivers in or not, but Jeff Gordon, you know, obviously he's a legend, so we got to include him.
Now at number 2, for the car number 2, there was a lot of different drivers that drove this number. Some of those drivers being Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, Kurt Busch. Those are probably the biggest names that drove the number 2 car. But for me, I'm going to go with Rusty Wallace. Now, Rusty Wallace had a fantastic career in NASCAR. In my opinion, top 15 driver of all time. He raced 26 years in sports. At the beginning, obviously, mostly with the number 27 car. But Wallace had 55 wins in his career. And he had not only that, but 349 top 5s and 706 starts, which is over half the races he ran in. He finished in the top 5, which is absolutely insane. And also, kind of the fact he did win the championship at one point. Kurt Busch didn't run into 2 car as much as Wallace did. I'm going to go with Wallace to be the best driver in the 2 car.
This is by far one of the no-brainers in this list here. Rusty Wallace, an iconic figure in NASCAR with that Miller Lite car. He was just such an awesome driver that nobody really talks about as much. I mean, people talk about him, but not as much as they should. He is definitely a top 15 driver of all time, and it's just a no-brainer. But Brad Keselowski, looking at these stats, I feel like if he raced another few years with another dominant few seasons, he could have made this list. But due to he left the two car and wasn't as dominant, Rusty Wallace still remains the best driver in the two.
The number 3 car, obviously, we all know the answer for this, and this is Dale Earnhardt. Some other drivers that drove the 3 car, we can include Ricky Rudd, we can include Austin Dillon. Not really. That's a joke, by the way. But yeah, there's a bunch of different drivers that drove the 3. Richard Childress did too, but Dale Earnhardt's the obvious answer here.
Yep, another no-brainer there. Not too much explanation needed. He was just the best overall in that car. You all know why.
Number 4, the car number 4. This one is really tough for me because there's multiple drivers that could get the number 1 spot here for us. We got Rex White, we got Ernie Irvan, we got Sterling Marlin, and we got Kevin Harvick. And it's really tough to choose between those. Sterling Marlin did win 2 Daytona 500s, but obviously didn't win as many races as Rex White or Kevin Harvick did. Ernie Irvan was really solid in the 4 car as well, but I'm going to take him out of the conversation. So for me, it's between Rex White and Kevin Harvick. Rex White did win a championship, so did Harvick. White had 28 wins in 220 races, while Kevin Harvick, in 2020 at the moment, he had 56 wins in his career. So most of those being with the 4 car. So it's kind of like hard to choose between those two. Rex White, obviously one of my favorite drivers, and I've met him on multiple occasions. Really nice guy. I'm going to go with Harvick though.
Yeah, this wasn't really hard for me. I mean, you made valid points about Rex White. Once again, he had 26 wins, 90 top fives, and 121 top tens. But I got to go with Kevin Harvick. I mean, 11 more wins than Rex White, 145 top fives, 221 top tens, plus a championship, and all those dominant years, especially in 2020 when he got those, I think it was like 9 or 10 wins. So easily Kevin Harvick, in my opinion.
Number 5, this one is going to be a controversial take for me because I feel like most people's obvious answer for the number 5 car is Terry Labonte. And yes, Labonte had a great career, but Labonte only won 12 races in the 5 car. And also, some people could say Kyle Larson to be in the conversation. But for me, my best driver in the 5 car is not Rex White. I was about to say Rex White, Jeff Bodine, because Jeff Bodine was in the 5 car for most of his career. He did win 18 races. He had 100 top fives and 575 starts. He also led over 8,000 laps in his career. Bodine was just very, very solid in the 5 car. So I got to give it to Jeff.
Wow. I was not expecting Jeff Bodine. It's not a bad pick. Don't get me wrong. It's not crazy, but just something I wasn't expecting. Me personally, I went with Terry. 12 wins, 64 top fives, 125 top tens. But Kyle Larson, if he continues to drive the 5 car for the rest of his career, I wouldn't be surprised if he surpasses Terry Labonte. But at the moment of making this video, Terry Labonte is the best driver to drive the 5 car.
Understood. Number 6, the car number 6. This one's pretty obvious. Mark Martin. If you don't say Mark Martin, I don't know what else to say. He was very, very great in the number 6 car. I mean, he ran for 31 years, 882 races, and he had 40 wins. And he didn't run the 6 car in the Busch Series, but he also had a fantastic Busch Series career. Some other drivers I thought of that drove the 6 car: David Reagan and Buddy Baker.
I think I actually do really have to agree with Mark Martin. 35 wins, 230 top fives, and 361 top tens. That's just a no-brainer. Nobody else really comes close to Mark Martin's level of success in the 6 car.
Gotcha. At number 7, this one is to me a no-brainer. This is Alan Kulwicki. He won the 1992 championship. Was really solid driver and unfortunately passed away at such a young age. He had 5 wins. He only had 5 wins in his career, but he also was very consistent with 75 top tens. He had 24 poles, which is also crazy to have in only 9 seasons. So I got to give it to Alan Kulwicki.
There's no doubt in my mind it's Alan Kawicki, and he would have been a multiple-time champ if he had not died in that tragic plane crash.
Car number 8. Now, this one's going to be controversial as well because I have a couple of them that could definitely take the 8 car. Obviously, there's Dale Jr. He drove the 8 car for a good bit of years, and he was really dominant on restrictor plate tracks with the 8 car. But man, this is going to trigger some people, but I'm going to go with Joe Weatherly. And here's my reason why. So, Joe Weatherly, he ran in 230 races, right? Not only that, he had 25 wins, 153 top 10s in 230 races. That means he finished out of the top 10 in only 60 races, basically. And he had 18 poles, also two-time champion. How many championships does Junior have?
You know what?
That's my
I
opinion.
had I had Dale Jr. on my list, but you know what? I think I got to change it to Joe Weatherly. That is a very valid point there with 2 championships as well. And in my eyes, championships really make the list. So Dale Jr. obviously he didn't have a championship. He had a few seasons like 2004, for example, where he was close to
Yeah,
winning a championship, but he just could never get it done. And I love Dale Jr. Don't get me wrong, but Joe
same.
Weatherly, I got to change it to him.
Yeah, and I'm of course I'm not trying to disrespect. I'm not doing any disrespect. And if Junior fans get triggered, I'm sorry, but I'm just letting y'all know the facts. And I'm Dale Junior's obviously one of my favorite drivers. But another thing I want to add on to that, Weatherly had 20 wins in 110 races with the A car, while Junior had 17 wins in the A car. So
Yep.
that's a difference. But
Yeah, no brainer.
number 9, and the car number 9, this one's pretty obvious to me also, and this is Bill Elliott. He won 38 races in the 9 car, including 2 Daytona 500s, a lot of races at Darlington, and he also won a championship in 88. So I got to give it to Bill Elliott. Some other drivers that also drove the 9 was Casey Kane. He was one that drove the 9 car as well.
And Marcos Ambrose, road
Yeah,
course legend. Who else? Chase Elliott, obviously his son, but he's nowhere
yeah,
near as close to Bill.
not yet.
Maybe not yet. But yeah, definitely Austin Bill from Dawsonville is my driver for number 9.
Gotcha. Number 10, the number 10 car, Danica Patrick, she drove the 10. There's Johnny Benson, Derek Cope, who won the 1990 Daytona 500. But for me, it's Ricky Rudd. He won 6
Mhm.
times in that car, including a Brickyard 400, and was a championship contender in some years in the 90s and the early 2000s. So I got to go with Ricky Rudd.
I completely agree with Ricky Rudd. Jeez, I can't talk.
You're fine. Wow. Now, this one is a very tough one because there's so many great drivers that drove the 11. We have Darrell Waltrip, we have Ned Jarrett, we have Cale Yarborough, and we have Denny Hamlin. Now, Ned Jarrett and Cale Yarborough actually have more wins in the 11 car than DW had. Ned Jarrett had 2 championships. He had 35 poles, 50 wins, and 239 top 10s in only 352 races. Whereas for Cale Yarborough, he had 83 wins in his career, not all with 11, obviously, but he had 83 wins in 560 races and 319 top 10s, which means that Cale Yarborough only finished out of the top 10 about 200 times in his 560 starts. Now, Darrell Waltrip, for me, I got to give it to him. And
Mhm.
here's my reason why. Darrell Waltrip had 84 wins in his career. He had 3 championships, too. And he was such a strong driver early on in his career. Denny Hamlin hasn't won a championship. And Denny Hamlin is a great driver, don't get me wrong, but he is soft compared to these guys.
Easily Darrell Waltrip, for most of the same reasons as you. 3 championships, 84 wins. Denny Hamlin does not have a championship. Nonetheless, 3. Ha. You are correct. Darrell Waltrip raced in a much harder era with a lot of completely different talented drivers. So I definitely got to go with Darrell Waltrip. That's a no-brainer for me.
Gotcha. Now, this next one is the 12 car. And I don't know if I should include Bobby Allison in that. Yes, he drove the 12 car, but he didn't run in the 12 as long as Ryan Newman did. So this one is tough for me to choose. Allison won 25 races in the 12 car. Now, Newman, make sure I get this right. Ryan Newman, he only won like, I don't know, like I want to say 13 races in his career, maybe a little bit more. And he did have a lot of a lot of poles. But what just looking at the numbers that Allison had in the 12 car compared to Newman, I have to give it to Allison.
Easily Bobby Allison.
The 13 car, not a lot of success in that car. Obviously, the probably the best driver in that was either Casey Mears or Robbie Gordon.
You know what was sad is that when I was trying to look for it, I could not find really any pages that showed a lot of stats for the 13 car. But one person I did think of, Curtis Turner. He drove that controversial car with Smokey Unick. He was overall just an amazing driver, and I just had to go with Curtis Turner, man. I mean, he's just. I mean, you heard it from the interview that you did with Johnny Allen. He
Yeah,
could he could come in a car from the stands and people would let him drive it and he would win the race.
yeah, you're right. And I don't know why I didn't have him, why I didn't think of him at the moment, because I thought of him driving a different car number. But yes, Curtis Turner is the best driver of the 13. I do have him with my notes. He had 17 wins in 184 starts, 75 top tens, and 16 poles. Number 14, man, this one's tough because we have Tony Stewart, we have Fonnie Flock. Those two obviously drove the 14. Most of I would say Tony Stewart drove 14 most of his career, obviously, but that was tough for me. Who do you have in the 14?
Tony Stewart easily. I'm getting ready to pull up his stats, but Tony Stewart, I mean, he had 3 championships. I know that he did win
One.
one with 20.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest were with 14, I believe. Tony Stewart had 262 races, 16 wins, 58 top fives, and 101 top tens with 2,583. God, I cannot talk. Tony Stewart was definitely a no-brainer for me for 14. And he owns his own team.
Yeah, and I mean, well, Kurt, we can't count out Flock immediately yet. He won multiple Southern 500s. He won 19 races, 154 starts, and finished in the top 10 83 times. He also had 33 poles, but he didn't win a championship. But we're gonna have to give it to Stewart, another driver I thought of that drove the 14 car. At one point, I'm sure I think it was it Bobby. I wouldn't say it was Bobby, but I know some driver in the early 90s also drove the 14, and then Richard Brickhouse drove the 14 as well.
Also, Clint Boyer most
Yeah.
recently. Let's see, I see Jim Paschal, Chase Briscoe, of course, Sterling Marlin.
Yeah, those guys, yeah.
Let's see now, number 15.
Hmm. 15, man. Allison drove in the 15 too. In one of his Daytona 500s was in the 15 car. It's kind of hard to choose. But with the 15, Michael Waltrip had the most success in the 15 car out of everyone else. He had 2 Daytona 500s. Waltrip was really good when he drove the 15. I have to go with Waltrip.
Well, this one I have kind of tied. Obviously, Bobby Allison. Overall, he is the best driver to ever drive the 15. Like,
Yeah.
as of
Yeah.
all time, he's the best driver. But Michael Waltrip had the best stats in the 15. So, for the sake of this video, I guess we could say Michael Waltrip is the best driver of all time in the 15. Some other drivers that we could name: Clint Boyer. Let's see. Who else? I mean,
Ricky
JJ
Rudd,
Yaley, I think.
Dale Earnhardt, Ricky Rudd drove
Oh, yeah.
15 at one point.
Oh, how could I forget Dale Earnhardt Sr.? Yes.
I was thinking about, and I actually forgot to mention him, and I shouldn't have. But another driver that could have be the top of the 12 car is Neil Bonnet. Neil Bonnet had 18 wins and 362 starts, 156 top tens, and 20 poles. Neil Bonnet was a fantastic driver and definitely one of the best to drive. I would say top 40 driver of all time.
True. Next up, 16. I had Greg Biffle. Easily, Greg Biffle.
Yeah, I mean, he did have 18 wins in that number. His closest driver to that was 5, and I think that's Daryl Derringer. So I got to go with him too. There.
Greg Biffle, he had 504 races, 19 wins, 92 top fives, and 175 top tens. Some other guys you could include are Ted Musgrave,
Oh,
Kevin LePage the Field, Wally Dallenbach as well, and Tiny Lund. Oh, also David Pearson.
Yeah, David Pearson did drive in the 16 at one point, but he drove mainly in the 17 and the 21 car.
Right. Which, speaking of 17, that is up next right now.
This one is tough because there was multiple great drivers that drove the 17. We got Darrell Waltrip, we got Matt Kenseth, we got David Pearson. And those are the ones that come up to the top of my head. And it's hard to choose because David did win 30 races in the 17 car. Darrell Waltrip won 15 in the 17, including the Daytona 500. Kenseth had two Daytona 500 wins and 24 wins in the 17. Longevity standpoint, Kenseth would be, but I'm going to go Pearson.
I think I got to agree with you with David Pearson. I had Darrell Waltrip, but now I'm going to change it again to David Pearson. Just no doubt. But Darrell Waltrip is kind of close, but Matt Kenseth, I definitely don't think he compares to those two. I saw there was this one list I was looking at that had Matt Kenseth down as the best driver in the 17, and I'm like, no way, no way.
All
Not
right,
no bias there. Matt Kenseth's a great driver. I just don't think he's the best driver in the 17.
gotcha. Well, the 18 is between Kyle Busch and Bobby Labonte for me, and I gotta go Kyle Busch.
Bush, no doubt. 200 wins across all national series. He has two championships. I mean, Bobby Labonte, yes, had a championship, but just Kyle Busch. I mean, his crown jewels as well, his Brickyard 400s. Kyle Busch has
Southern 500.
56. Right, the Southern 500. Thank you. I knew he won another crown jewel. 528 races, 56 wins, 206 top fives, and 304 top tens. No brainer for me. And it's going to suck not seeing Kyle Busch in the 18. And we have the little leprechaun driving the 18 now.
For sure. And Kyle Busch also won at Charlotte a lot too. I know Bobby Labonte won there as well. But number 19, this one is really tough because Edwards drove in the 19 some, but didn't win that much in the 19. Jeremy Mayfield drove a good bit between the 12 and the 19. So that one is going to go to Mayfield.
I gave it to Martin Truex Jr.
Oh,
Well,
I can't believe I forgot Truex. Yeah, Truex Jr. My fault.
yeah, I mean, Martin
God,
Truex Jr., he has a championship, even though it was with the 78 car. He's been very close to winning championships with the 19. He's won some Coke 600s and some Southern 500s as well. So that was just a no-brainer choice for me with Martin Truex. But Jeremy Mayfield is definitely a good choice.
Gotcha. Number 20, this one is Tony Stewart, no doubt. He had 33 wins in the 20 car, including two championships.
And one of the best rookie seasons of all time, if not the best. Championship, no-brainer, Tony Stewart.
The 21 had a lot of amazing drivers. I mean, there's Donnie Allison who drove in the 21. There's David Pearson. There's Marvin Panch, I want to say, also drove the 21. Just a lot of big names drove the 21 car. Real quick, Donnie Allison, he did have 10 wins in his career, which kind of lowers his chances for the 21. And Pearson obviously had the most wins out of everybody in that car. He won 43 times, in fact. Kel Yarborough also drove the 21 car some as well. I'm going to give it to Pearson.
Definitely David Pearson for me. He had, pull up my stats. There we go. He had 43 wins, 97 top fives, and 103 top tens in 157 races. Top five driver of all time, no doubt.
Number 22, some drivers that drove the 22 car. We got Sterling Marlin, we got Joey Logano, we got Fireball Roberts, and Bobby Allison are some of the big names that drove the 22 car, and Warburton also. But this one's tough because obviously Logano and Allison, I think, are the two best that drove the 22. But Fireball Roberts is close as well. Roberts had 30 wins in only 151 starts in that car. And Roberts was a fantastic driver. He's up there with Logano for the 22, I think, even though Logano he has two championships. But I'm going to give it to Bobby Allison. I mean, he just had a fantastic career. And obviously, in my opinion, Bobby Allison's top 10 driver of all time. He had 84 wins, 446 top 10s, and 59 poles.
All right. Now, this is hard for me because I am a big Joey Logano fan and I don't want to sound too biased, but there are a lot of stats here for Joey Logano and Bobby Allison in the 22 car. I think it's a similar situation to what happened to Michael Waltrip, where Bobby Allison was the best driver all time to drive the 22 car. But Joey Logano's stats in the 22 car are 29 wins, 133 top fives, and 216 top tens compared to Bobby Allison's 17 wins, 90 top fives, and 131 top tens, which is very close. And then we also have Fireball Roberts, who has more wins than Logano, but less top fives and top tens.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging to say the least to think of who is the best driver. Plus, I don't want to sound biased, so I'll just give it as a tie between Allison and Logano.
Yeah. It is close, Mike, to be fair. I'm going to go with Allison. There's no uh, driver I had for the 23, but for the 24, Jeff Gordon, that's just no brainer right there.
Well, 23, I had Jimmy Spencer. I did look this up. I was thinking, was it Bubba? And then I just wanted to make sure because I do remember Jimmy Spencer did drive 23. He had no wins, 8 top fives, and 29 top tens. I do think Bubba will beat that though. And then 24, of course, is Jeff Gordon. I mean, there's a no brain. That's just a no brainer there. He spent his whole career 94 wins, 4 championships, 325 top fives, and 475 top tens. No brainer, Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Gordon was a very fantastic driver and obviously arguably a top five of all time. Yeah, now at 25, this one for me, I think this one's an obvious answer. There was some drivers that did drive the 25 that are notable. It's like there's Casey Mears, Jack White, and I think what's his name? I think Bodine drove the 25 at one point. Ken Schrader did too. But for
Ricky
me,
Hendrick.
it is Tim Richmond, and he won 9 races in like 13 or 30 starts in that car. He didn't run very often in the 25 because obviously his career was cut short. But I got to go with Tim Richmond.
I also had Tim Richmond for this. I mean, 9 wins, 16 top fives, and 21 top tens. Doesn't sound like the best compared to some other drivers on here, but he's definitely the best driver to drive the 25 car.
At number 26, this one is Junior Johnson. He ran. He was a car owner for himself at the time. He ended up becoming a famous car owner even after he stopped racing, and he won 22 races in the 26 car. No, actually 22 wins total for the 26 car by any driver, but he had 12 wins in the 26 along with 17 top fives and 40 races. But Junior Johnson, man, he had 50 wins in his career and 313 starts and 148 top tens, along with guess how many poles?
Um, Why? I think I have it up here actually. 11. I cheat.
46. He had
Oh, I thought you meant
46
all time. I
poles.
thought you meant all time. He had 11 in the 26. My fault.
Oh, it's all right, man. Well, thanks for letting me know that. I actually didn't know that.
But yeah, Junior Johnson as well is my pick, just for all the same reasons that you mentioned.
The 27 car, this one for me is Rusty Wallace. Wallace, he did win his only championship in that car. And just you can't go wrong with that. The Miller Genuine Giraffe car, the Kodiak car. He won 18 races and he had 54 top fives and 91 top tens and 145 starts from 86 to 90, which is incredible. Some other drivers that drove the 27 I could think of, one of them is Paul Menard.
I have to agree with Rusty Wallace, no doubt. I was not going to pick Paul Menard. And plus, Rusty Wallace overall, we already talked about this. Great driver, top 15 all time, easily him.
Actually, now this one is interesting because there's two here that have That have my vote. Or no, three. Take that three. We got Ricky Rudd, Fred Lorenzen, and Davey Allison. Those three were really great in the 28 car. And Fred Lorenzen, he had 25 wins in the 28 car, along with 62 top fives and 68 top tens in 125 races, which is absolutely incredible to have that many top tens and top fives in only 125 starts. Now, Allison, for me, Davey Allison's going to get it because he had 19 wins in 191 races. But overall, the better averages were for Lorenzen. But because of the time period, I'm going to give it to Davey Allison.
Right. I see what you're talking about. That is really close. Another driver that I was thinking of was Cale Yarborough. We had reacted
Yeah, he
to
did.
we had reacted to a race where he had won in the 28 car.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be another one of those situations with Bobby Allison where Cale Yarborough was the best driver of all time to drive the number 28, but not the best driver overall in the 28. My vote was Davey Allison, but Lorenzen was making it very close.
Gotcha.
Davey Allison is another one of those situations like Alan Kawicki, where he would have been a multiple time champ if he had not passed away.
You know who I thought of just now? Who the 27, number 27, another driver for that?
Yeah.
I thought of Benny Parsons because Benny Parsons drove the 27 for some time. Obviously, he was better than the 55, but 27 car, Benny Parsons is really strong for them. He had 21 wins in his career, 283 top tens, and 526 starts, plus a championship. So Benny Parsons is another one to think of at 27, but 29 for me, I'm going to have to give it to Kevin Harvick.
Oh, completely agree with Kevin Harvick there. Let me see. Let me pull up his stats really quick. Kevin Harvick had 23 wins, 100 top fives, and 209 top tens. No brainer for me, Kevin Harvick.
Now, number 30, this one is tough. I mean, obviously we have Dave Marcus, even though he didn't win that many races. Michael Waltrip never won in the 30 car except for an all-star race. Steve Park also drove the 30 car. Oh, this is tough, man. Who do you have?
Well, I had Michael Waltrip. He just had the best, from what I was looking at with the stats, he had the best overall stats. No wins, like you mentioned, but 15 top fives and 56 top tens with 417 laps led. So I got to go with Michael Waltrip.
I'm actually going to give it to Dave Marcus.
Huh? All right, so
31.
that's.
Sorry.
I was gonna say that was probably the
Base.
first difference of the video, like the first main difference of the video.
31 car. Robbie Gordon, maybe? I can't think of another driver that drove the 31 off top of the head other than Jim Vanderveer.
Jeff Burton.
Burden did too, but it wasn't. Oh, actually, now I'm thinking about it, maybe Burden because Burden didn't win as much in the 31, but he had better stats. So I'm gonna go with Burden.
Mine is definitely Jeff Burton. 324 races, 4 wins, 43 top fives, and 104 top tens. Easily for me, Jeff Burton.
Gotcha. 32. Oh man, 32. I'm trying to think of all the drivers that drove 32 because there's a lot. Obviously, Ricky Craven's one that comes to mind. I didn't have any other drivers written down off the top of my head. Did you have any?
I think I put down. Yeah, I did put down Ricky Craven. He had that iconic finish with Kurt Busch in the Southern 500 in 2003.
Who's going to get off? Here he comes. Here he comes. He's got him this time. It's going to be a drag race. Wow. They touch. They touch. Craven got him. Craven got him. Craven got him. And Craven. All right.
I know he was a very underrated driver as well. Looking at his stats, 2 wins, 10 top fives, and 24 top tens. So by this list, I have to go with Ricky Craven, but Terry Labonte as well drove the 32 at the end of his career. He had that interesting double-sided scheme. for his last ride. So it might be one of those situations where he was the best all time to drive it, but Ricky Craven is the best driver to drive that number in terms of stats.
Gotcha. 33 for me. This one is Harry Gant. There's a couple that I was thinking of, but Harry Gant to me is obviously best driver at 33. He had 18 wins in his career in 474 starts. He had 208 top tens as well as along with 17 poles.
I completely agree with Mr. September, Harry Gant.
I didn't have any for 34 or 35. Did you have any? Oh, Wendell Scott at 34.
Yeah, I have to agree. Wendell Scott, 34. First black driver in NASCAR to win a race and to even run a race. And he had one win, 20 top fives, and 143 top tens. But I think we got to take a short break because Zoom is crappy and they don't let us do meetings as long as we want. So we will be right back.
Based.
All right, and we are back. So for 35, I did not have anybody. There was just nobody really that I thought was fitting for it. But 36, I had Ken Schrader.
36, that one is between Ken Schrader, Ernie Irvin, and Elliott Sadler, I think, drove 36 at one point. If I'm wrong, then he drove the 38. But regardless, I got to go with Ken Schrader as well.
Well, speaking of the 38, I did have Elliott Sadler for that number. But for 37, I had a three-way tie between Chris Buescher, Tiny Lund, and Bobby Isaac. I think I got to go with Tiny Lund, though.
Well, Isaac didn't drive that much in the 37, or he's not really known as much driving the 37. I'm going to go with Tiny Lund. Tiny Lund, he was a very, very fantastic driver and talented too. Obviously, he didn't have as many wins as Isaac did in career, but I'm gonna go with him though.
38, I just mentioned Elliott Sadler. He wasn't the best driver ever, but he certainly was not the worst. He had no win, or no, wait, that's different. 2 wins, 12 top fives, and 40 top tens.
39, I think, is going to be Ryan Newman. I can't think of any other ones that come to mind.
Completely agree with Ryan Newman.
Number 40. This one is tough because obviously there's Sterling Marlin. He was really solid in the 40 car. But someone that also can make a case is Pete Hamilton, even though Pete Hamilton didn't drive that long in the 40 car. But I can't think of any other ones that drove in the 40, so I'm going to go with Sterling Marlin.
Sterling Marlin for me, easily 274 races, 4 wins, 27 top fives, and 76 top tens. Just never could be a champ, I believe. And overall, Sterling Marlin, underrated driver.
The 41 car, I'm pretty sure Curtis Turner drove the 41 at one point. I know Casey Mears drove the 41. Kurt Busch drove the 41. I may be missing some more. I think Jimmy Spencer did too. Yeah, he did drive the 41. So who do you have?
Kurt Busch, without a doubt in my mind. 177 races, 6 wins, 37 top fives, and 90 top tens. Not really sure why he left Stewart-Haas, but okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kurt Busch too. Now you mentioned those numbers, and Kurt Busch had more, even outside the 41. He had a better career. 42 car. This one for me is a no-brainer, and that is Lee Petty. Lee Petty in the 42 had 3 championships, 54 wins, and 427 starts. He also had 332 top tens, which means he only finished out of the top 10 about 80 times. And he also had 18 poles. I'm going to go with Lee Petty.
I also have to agree with Lee Petty.
Some other drivers that drove the 42, I'm pretty sure, was Jamie McMurray and Juan Paul Montoya.
And Kyle Larson.
Kyle Petty too. I'm just thinking about this. Kyle Petty was really solid in the 42 also.
Ross Chastain.
He didn't that car, but anyways, 43.
It's notable.
Yeah, but he didn't race, like he didn't have any wins in the 42.
You're right, but he's still notable.
Yeah. I can't believe that. But anyways, 43, Richard Petty, no doubt in my mind.
No, it's Eric Jones. No, I'm just kidding. Richard Petty. Richard Petty, without a doubt, 200 wins, arguably the GOAT. no doubt.
Man, the 44. Hmm. That one I don't even know, man.
I
Like
had
there's
Terry
there's some
Labonte.
drivers that weren't that good. Can you repeat that?
I had Terry Labonte.
Now you mentioned that, yes, Terry Labonte, because Labonte did win a championship in the 44. And if I'm correct, Labonte, where's my notes? I can't find it for some reason now.
Labonte had
But
Christian, I got it. 259 races, 6 wins, 74 top fives, and 138 top tens. No brainer for me, Terry Labonte, but another driver to mention is Kyle Petty in that classic Hot Wheels Flames car.
yeah. Now, what about the 45? Because there isn't many.
I think Kurt Busch.
I mean, yeah, Kurt, but there's also Adam Petty, but I don't know who else, honestly, in the
Kyle
45.
Petty, his father.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, honestly. This is around this time is where the list starts to get a little weird.
46, I can't think of anybody other than Carl Long. 47, I was thinking of Marcus Ambrose.
Hmm.
Other than that, I can't think of anybody for 47. Jimmy Johnson's obviously 48.
For 46, I had Speedy Thompson.
Oh, yeah, Speedy.
47,
Yeah.
47, I had Jack Smith.
Both of
And then
those solid
48,
drivers. Yeah, both
48,
of
of
those guys.
course.
Yeah.
48, of course, is Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, I'm the one that usually knows. Like I didn't even write down Speed Thompson or Jack White for some reason. I don't know why I didn't do that. But 50, don't have anyone at 50. I didn't write down every single number like Mike did probably.
I
51,
did.
51, I didn't have anybody. 52, I didn't have anybody. Same thing with 53 and 54. Who did you have for those?
So for 49, I don't know if you said that, but I had a tie between GC Spencer and Jim Paschal.
Okay.
50, apparently Jeff Bodine. So I think it's one of those. I think it was one of those situations where he was the all-time, I
Yeah.
guess. So Jeff Bodine. 51. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but Gober Soselby.
Oh yeah, Gober. Yeah, he didn't win many races, but he was
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Never heard of that guy. 52, Earl Ross / Jimmy Means. I think
Okay.
Earl Ross was my main pick, but Jimmy Means was the all-time pick. 53, Bob Burdick. And 54, I kind of went out of the box a little bit here. Kyle Busch, because of his Xfinity stats.
Yeah.
There's nobody really too appealing to me who drove the 54 in the Cup Series. And I just figured Kyle Busch, I mean, he won so many Xfinity races, so why not put Kyle Busch as the best driver in 54?
Now I'm thinking about it. Jabe Thomas in 25, he was really solid in there. And then the 33, honestly, Marshall Teague either drove the 52 or the 33 Hudson Hornet. It was one of those two numbers. I know the 55, Herb Thomas drove that. I would say one of the flocks did as well. So it's between those guys for 55 for me.
I had Tiny Lund, but Michael
Lund.
Waltrip as well was another great driver in the 55. But Tiny Lund just had the better stats, in my opinion.
Yeah, and real quick, Herb Thomas had 48 wins in 229 races, which is pretty wild, and 156 top tens, along with 2 championships and 39 poles.
Yeah, and Tiny Lund had 4 wins, 24 top fives, and 48 top tens. So definitely better than Waltrip, and that was a no-brainer for me in 119 races compared to 130 races for Waltrip.
Gotcha. Who do you have in the 60s? Because I actually skipped over the 60s because there just wasn't that many.
So 56, no-brainer, Martin Truex Jr. 57, I had Hutch Strickland. 58, Johnny Pat.
Yeah, Hutch Strickland did drive the 57. Also, Jimmy Spencer did too. My fault.
58, Johnny Patterson. 59, Tom Pistone. And then 60, I had Doug Cooper. Looking up his stats.
Yeah, both of those solid drivers. And I think Zoom's making us interrupt each other. But yeah.
Go figure. Doug Cooper had 52 races, no wins, 5 top fives, and 17 top tens.
Factual. 60s, as I mentioned, I didn't really have any for the 60s. I just skipped over. There wasn't that many, to be honest with you, man.
Six, yeah. Like I said, like three times, this is the part of the list where like it gets kind of weird and like nobody really has heard of these people, but it's worth a mention just for completionist sake. So I had Sherman Utzman. He had no wins, one top five, seven top tens. 62, I had Curtis Kreider. He had I'm trying to pull up his stats right now. But the 62 car is obviously known for Beard Motorsports. Noah Gregson, Brennan Gaughan
Yeah.
is the most known driver to drive the 62. But obviously, he doesn't really have that many stats except for three top tens. So I put Curtis down with seven top fives and 36 top tens.
Yeah, that's good selection there.
63, I had Terry Blivings. He had Philip Cole. There you go. He had 8 races with one top five and three top tens. Not the best stats ever, but again, this is where it's just kind of eh. Alma Langley for number 64.
Yeah, Elmo. Why did I forget about Elmo? Yeah, Elmo was definitely the best driver in the 64. He didn't win much, and he was I think he definitely is one of the pioneers of the sport, and
Yeah.
he ran a lot of the schedule for many years. I think he definitely should be at that one. 64.
Right, with 432 races, 2 wins, but his top fives and top tens are very impressive with 53 top fives and 165 top tens. Very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
65, I had Carl Adams.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, it's odd. Carl Adams had 19 races with no wins, no top fives, and 4 top tens.
66, I'm now thinking about one. 66 is tough because Johnny Allen drove the 66, and obviously I'm friends with him. A couple other drivers that are pretty notable drove the 66 as well, but Dick Trickle probably be most people's pick for 66.
Mm.
But I'm
See,
gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go Johnny Allen. I'm biased.
Phil Parsons,
Phil Parsons
honestly.
drove the 55 most of the time though, so I wouldn't put Parsons in the 66. But you could
The
do that if
stats
you
that I
want.
found, yeah, I mean, I don't mind the pick of Johnny Allen though. Let's see, we have 7. 67 was between Buddy Arrington and David Pearson. Buddy Arrington had the best stats, but David Pearson was overall the best driver of all
Yeah,
time.
true.
And then 68, Bob Drearden is who I put, but I also included Brandon Brown, just kind of somebody at least
Brandon.
just because somebody I don't know, just because I've actually heard of him. I haven't heard of Bob Drearden that much. But 69, I did have Johnny Allen. Let me pull up his stats real quick for that.
Allen didn't drive much in 69. Mainly drove 66, but he between those two.
Right, 26 races, no wins, 4 top fives, and 13 top tens.
Yeah. Number 70. This one for me. One driver also know about number 70 is Mike Skinner, but for me, it's going to be JD McDuffie. He was in the 70 almost basically his entire career from 1966 1991. He had 12 top fives, 103 top tens, and 624 starts, but he never got a win in the Cup Series.
JD McDuffie is by far the most unlucky driver in all of NASCAR. I believe he holds the record for the most last place finishes as well. But looking at his stats, he was not a bad driver by any means. I just believe he was unlucky. He had 624 races with 12 top fives and 103 top tens.
Yeah.
His average finish is 19.9. But just
That
was a
is,
very unlucky driver.
yeah, for sure. 71, I think we all know the answer for this one, but some other drivers to mention Dave Marcus, Fireball Roberts, and Mike Bliss. But the 71 is Bobby Isaac. He had 35 of his 37 career wins in that car. He had 114 top fives, 134 top tens, and 198 starts, which is absolutely crazy. That means he finished out of the top 10 only 64 times. And he also won a championship. So I'm going to give it to Isaac.
I also gave it to Bobby Isaac.
Yeah. Benny Parsons is for me number 72.
Yep.
As I mentioned, he did drive the 55 at one point. But Parsons won the 73 championship in that car. He had 12 wins in that car, along with 125 top fives and 177 top tens in 8 seasons.
I also gave it to Benny Parsons.
73 is tough because Johnny Beauchamp, he almost had a win. If I'm correct, he may have had a win or two in that car. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but he almost had the first Daytona 500. Another driver I was thinking of, Travis Kvapil, and there's Bill Schmidt. Bill Schmidt had the best overall numbers in the 73, but who did you have?
I had Johnny Beauchamp as well. He had 14 races, 2 wins, 5 top fives, and 7 top tens.
Now, 74, I don't know if you've ever heard this of him, but I have LD Austin. He drove the 74 car from 1957 to 1962. He had 2 top fives and 51 top tens in 161 races.
Yeah, you're not going to believe this, but I actually also had LD Austin.
Good. I'm glad you did your research, Mike, because you did more research than me.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm not going to lie, but it's okay.
I didn't have anybody for 73. As I mentioned, it was kind of up in the air other than Beauchamp. 75. This one for me is going to be Neil Bonnet. I kind of mentioned Neil Bonnet earlier in the video, but Neil Bonnet in his career had 18 wins, 156 top tens, and 20 poles. Another driver that drove the 75 was Brendan Gaughan, and I think Bob Roberts did too.
I had Neil Bonnet.
If I'm correct, Kelly Yarbrough drove the 75 at one point, maybe a race or two.
I think you might have been correct, but I would have to look at that again.
76, I'm going with Larry Frank. He had 51 starts, but finished in the top 10 15 times, and he had 6 top fives. He didn't have a win, though.
I also agree with Larry Frank.
77. This one's controversial, but I'm gonna go with Joe Lee Johnson. He only won. He's actually the only driver to win in the 77 car in NASCAR, and he won. Joe Lee Johnson actually won the first World 600, if I'm correct, but his only win in that car was in Nashville in 1959, and no other drivers really had success in that car, so I have to give it to him.
Well, I had Robert Presley, but now that I'm looking at Joe Lee Johnson, you are correct. He did have 1 win, 4 top fives, and 8 top tens. So I'm going to change mine to Joe Lee Johnson.
78 for me is Truex Jr., even though he did win a championship in that car. He had 17 wins and 88 top tens and 176 races. Another notable driver, Dick Passwater.
And Kurt Busch.
Yeah,
and Regan Smith.
Did too. Yeah, for one season.
Well, still, he did a good season. Martin Truex Jr. was the obvious choice for number 78. He really put Furniture Row on the map and finished what Kurt Busch had started. Comparing the stats with Kurt Busch and Martin Truex, Truex had 180 races, 17 wins, 56 top fives, and 91 top tens. And Kurt Busch had 42 races, 0 wins, 11 top fives, and 19 top tens.
Next up, we got 79. And for me, this one is Frank Warren, also a number that has no wins. To their credit, he had 1 top 5 in his career and 23 top tens and 348 starts.
I also put down Frank Warren.
Awesome. Who do you have at number 80?
Jim Paschal.
Jim Paschal. Yeah, that makes sense. I agree.
Jim had, if I can find his stats, there we go. Jim had 20 races, 1 win, 7 top fives, and 12 top tens.
Gotcha.
And that 81, I had Kenny Wallace.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that it would probably be him. I can't think of any others though.
Yeah, Kenny had 104 races, 0 wins, 0 top 5s, but 11 top 10s. 81 has not been a very successful car number. I believe it only has one win from what I'm seeing here, and that was from Danny Graves. Did not know that.
Hmm.
Number 82, Joe Eubanks is who I had.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't I've no other difference there.
Joe Eubanks had 0 wins, 34 top 5s, and 76 top 10s.
Gotcha.
83, I had Brian Vickers when he drove for Red Bull.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on that actually.
Another driver you could mention was Lake Speed. Brian
Yeah.
had 141 races, 1 win, 11 top 5s, and 34 top 10s. One other guy you could mention was Matt DiBenedetto when he put the 83 on the map at that sixth place finish at Bristol. And then everybody started hailing him as the next great thing.
Well, first off, I will say I actually disagree about having Brian Vickers 83. Now that you mentioned Lake Speed, I want to say Lake Speed was the better driver in that car.
I think I have to respectfully disagree because Lake Speed only had 92 races, 1 win, 6 top 5s, and 17 top 10s.
But
But that
also
would be
think
enough.
about Brian Vickers, how much of a he caused so much carnage on the track, bro. Like he was not that great. I'm sorry.
True, but with the way that I did my video or I did my list, I had Brian Vickers, but we're just gonna leave it to the second difference of this video, or the
Well, I
second
think
major difference.
yeah. Oh man, trying to pull up
84, I had Dick Trickle.
84. Yeah, I mean probably. I can't think of any other drivers that drove that number.
Let's see. Trying to find Dick Trickle's stats right now. Well, actually, now that while I'm looking at it, Jimmy Johnson just announced that his number is going to be
Yep.
84 for the newly rebranded Legacy Club or something like that, Legacy Motor Club or something like that. I personally, to get the thoughts out of the way while I'm looking for Dick Trickle stats, I'm glad to see that Jimmy Johnson's coming back for a few races, but I really don't like that name and I don't like the number. I
Hmm.
wish that they would give him 48, but I understand why he will not get the 48. And I think that they could have gone with 44 because it would have fit better with Petty, but whatever.
Yeah. 85, I don't have anybody or for 86 at the moment. Do you have anybody?
Well, Dick Trickle had 6 top 5s and 9 top 10s. 69, nice. Let's see. 85, I had Shane Hall, and 86, I had Neil Castles.
Oh, well, I know Neil. I didn't really know Neil drove the 86 that much. I know he drove the 06.
Right. So 80, 87, I had Buck Baker.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I had him at 87 as well. I mean, Buck Baker, he won 46 races and 635 starts, along with 372 top 10s and 45 poles. And if correct, Buck also won 2 championships. He's in my top 15 drivers of all time.
88, I had Dale Jarrett. Some people may think it's Earnhardt, but it's really kind of a no-brainer. Dale Jarrett.
Well, Buck Baker actually won a lot of races in the 88. Darrell Waltrip drove the 88, so did Bobby Allison.
Oh yeah, yeah. I knew Daryl
Andrew
Walsh.
Matthews too at one point, and it's kind of hard to choose. Buck Baker won most of his races in that car in the 88. Neil Castle drove in the 88, so did Buddy Baker. Man, it's tough. This one is a tough one. And Buddy Baker, real quick, he had 19 wins in 700 races, 311 top 10s, and 38 poles. But Baker had a lot of races, but didn't win as much as some of these other guys. This one's for me. Who did he have again? Dale Jarrett. I want to
Yep.
say it's for me. It's between Jarrett and Waltrip in the 88. So I'm going to give it to Jarrett, but Waltrip was obviously the better driver. But it is so many great drivers that drove that car. Even Donnie Allison, too. Donnie Allison drove in the 88 at one point.
Right. Dale Jarrett had 380 races, 28 wins, 129 top fives, and 188 top tens. Just no doubt. But Darrell Waltrip is definitely the best all-time driver to drive in the 88. But Dale Jarrett, in terms of stats, is the best. 89, I had Buck Baker again.
Yeah, same.
Let's see. Next up, number 90,
90?
I had Dick Brooks.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also known as Richard Brooks. He was a very solid driver.
Let's see. Number 91, I had Tim Flock, obviously.
This is undoubtedly a unanimous decision here because Tim Flock was amazing. He won 39 races in only 187 starts in 13 seasons. He had 39 poles, also 2 championships to his credit too. He was obviously the best driver to drive the 91 car.
92, I had Herb Thomas.
Yeah, Herb Thomas, I mentioned him a little bit ago, but he had 48 wins in his career, 156 top tens. He only finished out of the top 10 about 73 times. And he was really solid as well. So I got to go with him too.
93, I had Ted Chamberlain.
Ted Chamberlain. I've never heard of him before for some reason.
I agree. I never heard of him as well, but when I looked it up, he had 56 races with no wins, no top fives, but 14 top tens. Some other drivers you could include are Dave Blaney and Travis Quaffle, however you pronounce his name exactly. Yep. But yeah.
90. Are we at 92 or 93?
We are at 94, which is awesome. Bill from Dawsonville yet again.
94. See, for me, it's tough because yes, Elliott drove in a 94 a good bit, but there were some other drivers that won a lot of races in that car. I mean, there's Banjo Matthews who also drove in that car, E.C. Ramsey. I know Sarah Marlin drove in the 94, also Bobby Warwick. Man, I'm going to go with Bill, but Marlin was arguably better in the 94, but I would give it to Bill too.
True. I gave it to Bill because of 13 top fives and 45 top tens.
95. This one is another tough one. Gene Klein ran a lot of great races in the 95. He was pretty solid. Darrell Waltrip ran some in the 95 too early on in his career. And Marlin drove in the 95 for a little bit too. So I have to go at DW.
I also had DW there. He had, let me see. Some other drivers you could include are also Michael McDowell, Matt DiBenedetto, and Christopher Bell. But for Darrell, he had 35 races, 9 top fives, and 18 top tens.
Gotcha. 96, I think is the next number, right?
96.
Who did you have? Because Dale Earnhardt drove the 96 at one point. So did Childress. Ray Elder too.
I had Childress.
You know what? I'm going to go with Ray Elder because he had a better career than Childress.
I'm just going to make sure that of the stats here because Richard Childress had 108 wins, no wins, 3 top fives, and 20 top tens.
Another driver that drove the 96 was Andy Houston.
Actually, I think I got to change mine to Ray Elder as well. He had more wins and more top fives than Childress.
Yeah.
But Childress has more top tens. So mine is Ray Elder now.
Number 97, some drivers that also drove a number other than the obvious answer. We got the 97 of Chad Little. I think Stacey Compton drove a little bit too. Robert Presley may have, but I'm going to go with Kurt Busch.
Oh, this is a no-brainer. Kurt Busch. I mean, he won a championship 2004. Let's see. He had 14 wins in 184 races, 43 top fives, and 79 top tens. Easily Kurt Busch.
Now, 98, some drivers that drove this 98 was Bill Blair Sr. We got Johnny Mance, who won the first ever Southern 500. Drove the 98. Derek Cope, I think, did as well. I think Brad Bodine drove the 98 at one point. It's kind of hard to choose this one, but I'm going to go Johnny Mance.
I had Marvin Panch, but also Leroy Yarborough for the all-time pick.
True.
But Marvin Panch definitely was my main pick if I could pull up his stats right quick.
I didn't think he drove that much in the 98, but apparently he may have. I didn't know that.
Marvin Panch had 85 races, 6 wins, 40 top fives, and 50 top tens.
Okay, now I'm changed into Marvin.
And then finally, number 99. This should be a pretty easy one. Carl Edwards.
Yeah, Carl Edwards was obviously best driver in the 99, but some other ones. Curtis Turner drove in the 99 at one point. Jack Smith did. Shorty Rollins was another name. Bobby Isaac drove the 99, so did Fred Lorenzen. But Carl Edwards is my choice. And I would say one other driver that has a chance at 98 and 99 is Leroy Yarborough. He was a really solid driver as well. 99. One driver I didn't think of at 88, we had Dale Jr., but also Ricky Rudd drove in the 88 some too. Those are some other names that just came to my head.
Right. Well, I believe that will close out the video. This was a really fun video. I got the idea because NBC posted who's the best driver to drive the number 1, and I was like, well, we need some content for NAS boys. Why not? So I had a lot of fun making this. I had a lot of fun researching this. There were some drivers that I did not hear about, especially in the 50s and 60s. So with that, that's going to close the video out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe. We're going to have more videos coming out for you in 2023, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Yeah.